Hello guys, welcome to the biology class with Mandy Patson. Please don't forget to subscribe, like and drop your comment. Today we are going to talk about characteristics and classification of living organisms. The first topic of IGCSE Biology, and that is characteristics and classification of organisms. We're going to be looking at the first four objectives. Number 1 says describe the characteristics of living organisms. Number 2 says state that organisms can be classified into groups by the features that they share. Number 3 says describe a species as a group of organisms that can reproduce to produce fertile offspring. And the last one says describe the binomial system of naming species as an internationally agreed system in which the scientific name of an organism is made up of two parts, showing the genus and the species. So there are basically 7 characteristics that are used to classify an organism as living. The first one is movement. And movement is an action by an organism or part of an organism causing a change of position or place. The ability of an organism to shift from one place to the other. The second one is respiration, which is the chemical reactions in cells that break down nutrient molecules and release energy for metabolism. The third one is sensitivity, which is the ability to detect and respond to changes in the internal or external environment. For example, if you pinch an organism, it is supposed to show that it is responding to that touch. The ability to do that is called sensitivity. Then we have growth, which is a permanent increase in size and dry mass. A typical example that I always give my learners is that of how they used to look when they were 2 and what they actually look like today. There is permanent increase in size. They do not look the same. They have grown. And then we have reproduction, which is the process that makes more of the same kind of an organism. For example, typical parents at home, they might have 3, 4, 5 children. They have been able to produce more of their kind, more human beings, and that is called reproduction. The same appears to cows. It can also be seen in goats or hens. You plant a small plantlet of onion, and the next you see 3, 4 more plants. That means there is reproduction there. There is production of more of the same kind. And then we have excretion, which is the removal of waste products of metabolism and substances in excess of requirements. This one is seen in a number of instances. For example, when you take a lot of water, you find yourself visiting the toilet more often, going to empty the bladder. That is another type or another way of removing the excess that you would have taken. The water that is required within the body has exceeded the levels that are required. So you need to go and take off the excess of the water. And that is one example. And then lastly, we have nutrition, which is the taking in of materials for energy, growth, and development. An example of this one is feeding. When you actually take in some food that is required for energy, you need food so that you can be strong. You need food so that cells can divide or they can replicate. And this is what we are trying to explain here as nutrition. Taking in of food so that there is growth, so that there is production of energy, so that there is development. So to make it easy to be able to probably memorize the 7 characteristics of living organisms, you can use the mnemonic Mrs. Gren. M for movement, R for respiration, S for sensitivity, G for growth, R for reproduction, E for excretion, and then N for nutrition. So organisms are supposed to show the 7 characteristics. The only organism that does not show all these except for one characteristic is the virus. The rest are supposed to show these characteristics for them to be classified as living. Organisms can be classified into groups by the features that they share. For instance, the moment you see an organism that has got feathers, you are bound to say this is a bird. Or the moment you see an organism that has mammary glands, you're bound to say, this is a mammal. So organisms can be classified using particular characteristics that they share. They are then classified in a particular class because of that. We say organisms that have a backbone are called vertebrates. So any organism that has a backbone is called a vertebrate. If it lacks a backbone, then we say it is an invertebrate. That is what we're talking about. We're just looking at characteristics that are common or features that are common within organisms and using those to classify them. Then a species is a group of organisms that can reproduce to produce fertile offspring. And a typical example that I can give is that of humans. Humans are able to produce offsprings that are able also to produce fertile offspring. But if you take a horse and a donkey, you produce a mule. A mule is infertile, meaning these are not classified as the same species, because in as much as they are able to produce a living organism, that organism is not fertile, and that means these are of different species. Then lastly, the binomial system of naming species is an internationally agreed system in which the scientific name of an organism is made up of 2 parts showing the genus and the species. There are quite a number of examples that I can give here. For example, the lion is called the Leo Panthera. Leo being the genus and Panthera being the species. We can also talk of the Z maize, the African maize that we know. It is called Z maize, Z being the genus and maize being the species. We can also talk of the human being, the Homo sapien. Homo being the genus and sapien being the species. There are a number of examples that I can actually give. And usually the genus has got a capital letter, while the species will have a small caps. And then usually the genus and the species are italicized. Thank you.